Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 Scottish Open DFS Tactics show. We have a lot to get into. We're going to update the forecast. We're going to take a look at all of the projected ownerships, and we have all the information you need to optimize your lineups as lock is fast approaching. So let's not waste any time. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. There are a lot of great golf analytic tools out there. I simply believe Fantasy National is the best. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where earlier this week I posted some research around the ISCO Championship, formerly the Barbasol. But with very little data around the Scottish Open and the Renaissance Club, I just didn't feel comfortable trying to gather any patterns from previous winners. But normally that research comes out on Monday. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, then give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and my top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That always comes out every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show, so be on the lookout for that later on this evening. If you want to see that, go give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a very good article called The Fringe. It's a great way to start your week of preparation. He continues to update you with more information throughout the week. And if you are a subscriber to his article, which is free to do, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday evening as we continue the DFS talk over there. We talk about game theory, favorite areas, the price board, players we're avoiding and pivoting to. It's always a great discussion week in and week out, so you don't want to miss out. Make sure you are subscribed to his article and go show him some support. Follow him over on social media. Finally, we are live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all. In addition to the poll question, which I have typed up, who's your winner this week? Who are you targeting? Who are you fading away from? All of that good stuff. But we have a lot to cover, so let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2024 Scottish Open. And we start, as we always do, on a Wednesday evening over at the Super Forecast in Windfinder. And while you are looking at that, hey, Donald, thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Good to see you this evening. While you are taking a quick look at that, let me go ahead and post the poll question. It's pretty simple, but one that we need to really think about this evening. And hopefully I'll have some good suggestions for you throughout the evening in regards to this poll question. But the poll question is, how many DP World Tour players are in your player pool this week? And the options are below, as you'll see when I post that. 0, several, very few, or, a few, very little. So we'd love to hear your all's input on that. As myself, I am still struggling to finalize my player pool for the Scottish Open. So would love to hear from that. But we take a look at the Super Forecast here in Windfinder, and this has been fairly consistent throughout the week, and it is what has led me to take the angle that I have this week when we go to the mixed condition model. Very little wind in the forecast for Thursday and Friday, and you see Saturday maybe a little bit, but I would think that this is pretty calm in regards to, or in relation to, what you could expect from this area of the world at this time of year. PM, AM advantage, that's at least what I see now. So the heaviest winds do look like they are in the morning tomorrow and in the afternoon on Friday. Having said that, the Friday is pretty close to even. Yes, you could argue the Friday AM has the better of it, sure, but this is pretty negligible here. Really, the highest amount of wind, at least in the forecast right now, is Thursday morning. And that's when the players, or those are the players that are going to have the worst of it. Not only that, but it seems like both days the wind switches. So no, both of these waves are going to be playing the course in different winds, it looks like. So right now, I would give a slight advantage to the Thursday PM, Friday AM. However, I do expect, or I believe, that the next forecast update is right at the end of the show at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. So will be interesting to see if you have the capability to stay up late and get the next forecast, or get up extremely early for even a more updated forecast. With this being on the coast, weather can change very, very rapidly. But if this is indeed the final forecast you get, I would have a moderate advantage, slight to moderate advantage for the Thursday PM, Friday AM portion. But it does look like the winds are going to be calm throughout the majority of the tournament. Maybe picks up on Sunday, but very, very little wind, seemingly. We'll move to Fantasy National, and the angle that I have taken this week, with the very little wind and with all the rain that they got yesterday, I do think this course is going to be extremely soft. And soft conditions generally make for easy scoring. Players are not afraid to go at flags. And you'll see how I have adjusted a little bit in the mixed condition model. But as a quick review, in rounds that are easy relative to par, the past couple of years, our top performers have been Xander, Colin Morikawa, Ludwig Aubert, Davis Thompson, Justin Thomas, Rory, Alex Noren, Victor Hovland, Eric Cole, and Sung Jae. So definitely give these players a boost, in my opinion, as I do think it's going to play pretty darn easy this week at the Renaissance Club with the lack of wind and how soft it has been. We want to continue on down. Minwoo Lee, Eric Van Rooyen, Ryo Itsatsune, Tom Hoagie, Adam Hadwin, Ben Griffin, Doug Gim, Hurley Long. It's only 3 rounds, so be aware of that. But Hurley Long did play well at the Barbasol, which is always very easy. Aaron Rai, Sepp Straka, these are your top 20 when rounds have been easy. The other side of the coin, Marcel Siem, Ricky Fowler, Davis Riley, Dylan Fratelli, Luke Donald, Gary Woodland, Lee Hodges, Chandler Phillips, Ryan Fox, Molinari, Griot, Olesen. These are the players who have not been good, at least on the PGA Tour, when rounds have been easy relative to par. No course length filter, no green architect, filter. This is a Tom Doak design. So let's just jump straight into the mixed condition model, see where I am or how I'm approaching the Scottish Open this week, and let you know what areas I might be weak to if indeed it plays differently than what I think. So we start with 10% and off the tee, and you'll see distance as well. I'm not too terribly concerned with accuracy this week, at least off the tee. I just want to really focus on the distance, especially since all the rain that the Renaissance Club saw yesterday. It's going to be very soft. I want to see who just bombs it, as bombers generally have a slight advantage here anyway. I think it's going to be amplified this week due to the very calm winds and soft conditions. So 10% off the tee and 10% in distance. 20% in approach. Look, this is just my preferred golfer type, shot type on the PGA Tour, and with professional golf, I'm always going to prefer ball strikers. And I think it's going to be, again, amplified this week with the soft conditions. So 20% in approach, 10% putting on Velcro speed greens. These greens are going to be very, very slow, even with very little wind. They really can't afford to speed these greens up anywhere to the level that we see stateside. So 10% on putting on Velcro greens. And this does throw a little bit of a wrench into some of my rankings, as we'll see some players who really rise due to the fact that they putt well on slow greens. I thought about keeping the 3-putt avoidance on slow greens just to simulate players perhaps putting from off the green. I did not end up keeping that in the mixed condition model, so that could be one area I'm weak. Instead of looking at total putting, we could have looked at 3-putt avoidance, but 10% in putting on slow greens. I do think slow greens are going to be the metric that you would want to use. We talked about 10% in distance. The next 4, I only have at 5%, even though I feel somewhat comfortable that the course will play easy just due to the forecast. But because this is on the coast, that forecast can change quite rapidly. And because of that, I'm hedging a little bit and keeping these percentages down in case the tournament changes. We saw just how drastic of a change the Renaissance Club had last year when the first 2 rounds were average. The third round was quite easy, and then they had a big squall come through, and Sunday was very, very difficult. So the weather can change quite rapidly, and that's why these next 4 metrics all have the easy relative to par filter, and they all are only at 5% just to hedge in case the forecast changes. But good drives, that's about the only accuracy that I have in regards to off the tee. In the mixed condition model, players are either hitting the fairway or they can hit greens from the rough. So 5% in good drives, 5% in greens, 5% in opportunities, 5% in birdies gained, all when it's easy. I did not want to look at birdies or better. I do not think there will be a lot of eagles here, even though there is a drivable par 4, short-ish par 5s, but I just think it's going to be the birdies. I don't foresee a lot of eagles this week. So that's why there's only birdies gained. 10% in par 3s. Look, at least statistically, the par 3s haven't mattered too much. So this is me just sticking to what I believe when I see a golf course have 5 par 3s. I just think the par 3s are going to carry some weight. So 10% in par 3s. If they continuously, or this year, they don't provide much in terms of value to the winner, then that's something I will definitely adjust to next year for the Scottish Open. But again, with 5 par 3s, I just firmly believe that they're going to play a factor. Hey, good evening, Pete. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Good to see you this evening. You've been catching every show this week, so great to see you. I saw you last night for the alternate field event, so hopefully you got any wagers and lineups in for that and are ready to double dip and go full degenerate this week with 2 tournaments. But it's good to see you this evening. So 10% par 3s, 5% in total par 4s, 5% in the 450 to 500 par 4s. Again, this length of par 4 seems to be the most prominent here and most important at the Renaissance Club. Half of the par 4s on the scorecard fall to this range, and it has provided roughly 50% of the strokes gained in par 4s, at least the past 2 years. And then to round out the mixed condition model, 10% in the par 5s, 600 to 650. Even though only one of the 3 par 5s measures to this length, it has consistently provided the most strokes gained over the past 2 years. And with 3 par 5s, I also wanted to make sure I had enough par 5 influence in the mixed condition model. So 10% there. Any glaring weakness, I don't have any around the green. I don't think it's going to matter this week because generally putting is the bigger deal, at least at the Renaissance Club. I don't think the actual act of chipping is very difficult around the Renaissance Club. Players generally have problems putting, so that's why I have a little bit of extra emphasis in the putting. So no around the green. If accuracy off the tee matters a little bit more, maybe I could have bumped up the good drives, but I am more focused on the distance this week. And the only other glaring weakness, other than maybe the omission of bogey avoidance, if this does indeed play extremely easy, you could argue to up these percentages due to the fact that the forecast lended itself to being easy. So this is more of a hedge on my end. The par fives are the scoring holes here. We go to the course breakdown just very, very quickly. 0.4 of a shot under par, but only 2% eagles. Sorry, there you go. 0.4 of a shot under par, but only 2% eagles. Just a ton of birdies. That's why I'm also only looking at birdies gained, not birdies or better, because I just don't feel like there are a lot of eagles here. 1/4 of a shot and 0.2 of a shot. So yes, and that's generally true for most professional events, Darnell, is that the par fives are the scoreable holes. Most professionals take care of par fives. So there's a look at the mixed condition model. Let's go ahead and go to Microsoft Excel, the reveal of my rankings for the Scottish Open. And I also have Gabe's sources projected ownerships as well. So we'll be able to take a look at both sources and see where any discrepancies are. Just a quick reminder for those of you who are new, or quick reminder for those who are returning viewers, for your information if you are a new viewer. My rankings are based on 3 criteria. FNGC rank, which is a straight numerical ranking based on the mixed condition model we just covered in Fantasy National, the metrics and percentages in them. Course value is an attempt at giving a player a value on how well they have played that course in normally the past 5 years. We only have data for the past 2 years in Fantasy National, so this is only 2 years of data here. And then we are playing DFS, so we are trying to find unique plays. Projected ownership per Fantasy National is also a factor in my rankings. But my rankings for the Scottish Open this week go as such. Rory is my number 1 player this week. Xander, second. Ben on third. Keith Mitchell, fourth. Corey Connors rounds out my top 5. Aaron Rai, Tom Hoagie, Ludwig Aubert, Davis Thompson, and Victor Hovland round out my top 10 by the numbers. I really don't like Tom Hoagie this week, and this is the player I was mainly referring to that is rising quite considerably with the fact that he is putt well on slow greens, but his 3-putt avoidance is pretty darn bad, and he's generally not a great putter anyway. So this was the player I was thinking about mostly when I made that statement. I'm not as high on Tom Hoagie as it might seem, and he lacks a lot of distance, which I'm really, really focused on the distance this week. Everything else, Tom Hoagie, I mean, he's an elite iron player for sure. Mainly finds fairways, just lacks the distance. But you'll also notice that this is very, very predominantly PGA Tour players. I do not collect DP World Tour statistics, so all of the DP World Tour players are going to be artificially low. Just like with the majors, any players over at LIV are artificially low just due to the fact that I don't collect any stats other than the PGA Tour. So just keep that in mind as we move forward this evening. But other than Tom Hoagie, no real shock here in terms of the players that are in the top 10. Rory and Xander. Been on, maybe a little bit surprising that he's third, but with the concentration on distance, him being second in distance, he's actually top 10 in par 3s as well. He's been ball striking it very well as well. It's just the putter. So been on, maybe a little bit of a shock being third, but he's not a surprise to be in my top 10 per se. Connors, all the emphasis in ball striking. Aaron Rai, who's playing some fantastic golf. So There's a look at my top 10. We will sort on the price board, figure out where our fellow contestants seem to be going in various areas of the price board and how we can maneuver around them. So in the 5 digits, in the 10Ks, we have 4 players. Rory at 11.9, Xander at 11.7, Ludwig Aubert at 10.5, and Morikawa at 10.3. All of these players per Gabe source are above 20%. I would expect probably most of these players to be above 20%. The most projected owned player per Gabe source is indeed Rory. Now, Fantasy National members have him slightly less than Xander. You're kind of splitting hairs here. Rory is our defending champion. Xander won a couple years ago. Both of them playing very, very well. Despite Rory's poor putting at the U.S. Open, he's still playing very, very well. The one player in here, even though he rates out well, that I'm going to full fade is Colin Morikawa. And a lot of that is just due to the fact of the distance. He lacks the firepower that these other 3 have, and that's where I'm focused this week, is on the distance. So if Colin Morikawa plays well, I will lose, but I'm going with the Bombers. So I'll have plenty of Rory, I'll have some Xander, I'll have plenty of Ludwig Aubert. In fact, Aubert is about 4 to 5% less projected owned than these other 2, which really wants me to gravitate towards Ludwig Aubert, and he's cheaper. That way I don't have to go into the 5s or into the 6s as much. Don't get me wrong, I will have plenty of Rory and plenty of Xander, but I'm actually leaning towards Ludwig Aubert more so this week than usual for me. Rory's fine, Xander's fine. All 4 of these players are going to be chalky. You also can't play everybody, so I'm willing to plant my flag on Colin Morikawa. So in the 5 digits, really this is 1A and 1B for me. I really can't split these 2. But I'm actually probably going to have more of Ludwig, considering he seems to be a small pivot, a slight pivot, meaning 4 to 5% off of these other 2. Moving into the 9s, Tommy, Victor, Tom Kim, Hideki, Minwoo Lee, Matt Fitzpatrick. All of these players also rated out very, very well for me. But just like Colin Morikawa, you can't play everybody, so I'm actually going to full fade Hideki as well. Hideki is the pivot seemingly in this area, but I just don't want any part of Hideki. He's always a withdrawal risk. He has not played the Renaissance Club very well at all. With a major next week, it is not unheard of for him to just withdraw. So I'm just out on Hideki. If he plays well, I'll lose. If Morikawa plays well, I'll lose. I accept that, but you can't play everybody. Tommy Fleetwood, very, very popular. Most projected on player per Fantasy National. Him and Victor are getting about the same amount of ownership, right around 20 to 21%. I like Tommy quite a bit. You see the course value here. He's just generally played very, very well at the Renaissance Club. I'm not worried about the putter. Him being, an Englishman, he's used to these conditions. So I kind of like Tommy this week, although that is a lot of ownership. I'm not terribly afraid of Victor either. You see the fact that he's actually putt well on slow greens. It's his par 3 performance that kind of scares me, though. But Victor should be fine, although it is very, very popular. If you're a big believer in course history, which I don't know how much course history does matter at the Renaissance Club. Again, we only have a very limited amount of data. But Tom Kim, a T6 and a T3, I mean, just fantastic, fantastic form here, or history. He's only at anywhere between 14 to 16%. That's actually pretty darn fair for Tom Kim. I think a lot of people might be shied off the fact that he missed the cut at the Rocket Mortgage. Don't forget, he had played 9 straight weeks on the PGA Tour. Takes a week off. I think he's going to be pretty darn solid this week, albeit chalky, but a solid play. Again, don't want any Hideki. Minwoo Lee going to be also pretty popular. He is a former champion of this event in 2021. But nothing scares me away from Minwoo Lee other than perhaps his ownership. Per Gabe source, he's creeping up closer to 18 to 19%. But I like Minwoo Lee quite a bit. And don't be afraid of Matt Fitzpatrick this week. He's generally better when it's difficult, yes. But, in 2 tries here at the Renaissance Club, he's averaged a top 30 finish. He is definitely a pivot in the area. None of the Fantasy National members seem to be gravitating towards him. He's only at 11 or 12% per Gabe source, so I will sprinkle some Matt Fitzpatrick this week. No doubt about that, especially since he is generally pretty good on slower greens. Again, another one of these Englishmen that should be pretty good in these conditions. A lot of times I try to stay away from Fitzpatrick when it's easy. Again, he generally thrives when it's difficult, but you can't ignore the course history. He's been fairly solid. Fitzpatrick is not my guy. I like him. He's a good golfer, but he is not my guy. I will own guys who are my guys. Fitzpatrick's generally not one of them. I can get off of him. But another reason why I like Fitzpatrick this week is that he's a pivot in the area. He's only going to be probably 10%. So that's pretty darn solid for somebody in the 9Ks. So, Tommy, Victor, Minwoo Lee, all of these guys are going to be very, very popular, probably for good reason. I'll have my fair share of them. Tom Kim, if he's indeed in this 14 to 16%, that's very fair for a guy who has been in great form lately and who has played very well here. I will definitely sprinkle in some Matt Fitzpatrick as well. Moving into the 8s. All of these guys play rated out pretty well. I still am gun shy on Jordan Spieth, even though he's played well here. Yes, he had a fantastic Saturday at the John Deere, but he still finished outside the top 25. I can't get there with Spieth. And even though the Fantasy National members aren't on him, it seems like the general public will be. He's looking at about 11 to 12% per Gabe source. Yeah, just no thanks on Spieth. Instead, I kind of like Wyndham Clark. Plenty of distance. The irons are much better than what's been showing here. I think Wyndham Clark will be a little bit sneaky. Fantasy National members seem to be on Wyndham Clark. His ownership per Gabe source is a little bit lower. I'm hoping it's around 10%. I wouldn't be surprised if it creeps up a little bit. Let's see. Elsewhere, Aaron Rai is going to be extremely popular. Another former champion of this event, sitting right at anywhere between 15 to 16%. The putter is a lot better since he's gone to a new putting coach. And we've seen the results. He's been top 5ing like a madman. So Aaron Rai is probably solid. Sung Jae is going to be pretty solid, I think. But he's going to be pretty popular. Not the biggest fan of Brian Harmon, but he is a pivot in the area. Anywhere between 7 and 10%. Okay. However you feel about Justin Thomas, I can't get there this week, even though he rated out extremely well. I can't get there with Justin Thomas. Not this week. And Connor should be fine. Like, the 8Ks are fine. I'm not really thrilled to be in here. I'll use a little bit of Connors. Might use a Harmon a time or two. I think Sungjae will be fine. I think Rai is going to be pretty good, but pretty chalky. So that's why I'm not really on him. If there's any one player that I would be looking to get in here, it's Wyndham Clark. But even so, like, his ownership isn't as low as I was hoping it would be. So I'm really not doing much in the 8Ks this week for the Scottish Open. And again, don't want any part of Jordan Spieth. Tagala rated out well, but man, he's not really played well in links style golf. He's not played this course, so maybe he likes the Renaissance Club. We just don't know. But that's how I feel about the 8Ks. It's fine, but not really excited for anybody in here. Moving into the upper sevens, several of these players rated out extremely well. Like Ben On, I talked about, and the focus on the distance. Yeah, the putter is bad, but I think he's going to be good. But he's also pretty chalky, as you can see. Most chalky play in the upper sevens. I think it's a good play, but chalky. I like Robert McIntyre a lot, but again, going to be pretty darn popular, anywhere between 11 to 13%. Not necessarily as high on Davis Thompson. He's rating out well because of all the easy metrics, the easy to par filter, and how he's played very well when it's been easy. You know, the irons off the tee has been great lately. He's got plenty of distance, so he'll be popular. You know, anywhere between 10 and 12%. It's fine. I do like Seabez at 75. Even though he lacks the distance, he's been pretty darn solid here at the Renaissance Club. So don't mind me some Seabez. Straka, I want to like Straka, but his course value here is, his previous history here has not been great. Much like the 8s, the upper 7s are just okay. You know, I'll have been on a time or two. I'll have some Robert McIntyre, even though he's pretty popular. I want to like Max Homa, but man, he has struggled lately. Off the tee's been bad. His putter's been bad. Like, I just don't know where Max Homa is right now. A lot like Justin Thomas. I just don't know where these players are. So, yeah. I wish I could, because his course value, his history here is very good. I just can't do it. We move more to the lower sevens. This is where I've been, you know, garnering a lot more attention in my lineups. Talk about Alex Noren. I like Alex Noren quite a bit this week. I know the off the tees isn't great. He generally doesn't have a lot of distance, but when it's easy, he plays well. And that's what the angle I'm taking. That's part of the angle I'm taking, along with the distance. 7th in good drives, 3rd in greens. It's just off your screen, but top 25 in birdies gained. And he seems to be fairly unique. Alex Noren sitting anywhere between 4 and 6%. I like Alex Noren quite a bit this week, so wanted to highlight him. Adam Scott, also another very unique play. We'll talk about a guy that generally loves links style golf. It's Adam Scott, so be aware of that. I also like Thomas Dietrich a little bit. A little bit less than those other two, but figured I would mention Thomas Dietrich. He's been very good here at the Renaissance Club. I mentioned in the reveal of my top 10 that I'm not nearly as high on Tom Hoge as it might seem, so be aware of that. I like Eric Van Rooyen. You know, if you're stuck on some chalk down here with, you know, the Thomas Dietrichs or the Tom Hoagies, take a look at Ryan Fox too, but take a look at EVR. I think EVR is going to be pretty darn solid this week. I also don't hate Ryan Fox. The only reason I'm hesitant on Ryan Fox is because I've tried to back him so many times. It's always backfired on me. But you're right. He's played extremely well in his 2 trips here to the Renaissance Club. Plenty of distance off the tee. Good with off the tee. The irons are probably better than what's showing. I don't hate it, Darnell, by any means. He didn't rate out well because of the fact that on the PGA Tour, he's not played well when it's been easy. I don't hate it. I'll probably try to find a way to put him in a lineup of mine, but I'm much higher on EVR around this price point. Also highlighting Matthew Pavone. I think he's going to be pretty solid this week. 7% per Fantasy National, 9% per Gabe Source. Yes, he's 6,900, but I'm kind of considering him a 7,000. I don't like a whole lot in the upper sevens, or excuse me, in the upper sixes. I really don't. So that's why I wanted to highlight Pavone, even though he's a 6K play. At 6,900, I'm kind of treating him like a 7,000. You can look at the Højgaards. They've been generally fairly good here, but especially Nikolai is starting, he's getting a little bit of attention. So, Kitayama's played well here, but I can never seem to get Kurt Kitayama right. So if you have strong feelings for or against Kitayama, take that how you will. Matt Wallace, I'll probably find a way to put in a lineup or two. The irons have been very good. He's an Englishman. He should know how to play these surfaces and play in the links style. Jordan Smith is getting a lot of popularity in the mid-sixes, so be aware of that. Probably a decent play, but just be aware Jordan L. Smith is getting 10+% projected ownership. He is not nearly as unique as you think he might be. Moving into the mid to lower sixes, Eric Cole maybe. It's not great. Like, the distance isn't fantastic. Really, you're playing Eric Cole for the birdies. He's the number one birdie or better, or birdies gained and birdies or better player when it's easy. So that's what you're using Eric Cole for, is trying to just rack up a bunch of birdies because he will bogey. Probably worth a look. Victor Paris. Absolutely take a look at Victor Paris this week. Plenty of distance. Good putter on slow greens. Good when it's easy. I like Victor Paris quite a bit. Into the low sixes. Honestly, not a whole lot here. Because I'm going to try to group my DP World Tour players all together, sixes and fives. You could take a look at Sam Stevens, I suppose, at 6,200. A lot of this putting on Velcro is from his Caribbean events, when he putt very well in Caribbean events and played very well. He's been in good form, plenty of distance. Hits the ball a mile. You can take a look at Sam Stevens. I'm not in love with it, but if you're down here, okay. And then 5Ks non-DP World Tour players, there's really not a whole lot. There really isn't. I will casually mention Sami Välimäki. Some people might even still consider him a DP World Tour player. He's been more stateside this year, so I figured I'd give you a nod to Sami Välimäki. He's actually played easy events pretty well in his short time on the PGA Tour. Maybe worth a look. A lot of people seem to be gravitating towards Max Grazerman. Only 2 to 3% per Fantasy National. I've heard a few pundits talk about Max Grazerman. I guess it's probably around the distance, would be my guess. But that's really it in terms of the 5Ks. I just wanted to give a nod to Sami Välimäki. For DP World Tour players, this is very, very tough for me, especially since I don't collect DP World Tour stats. But based on gut feelings and seeing these players in majors and hearing some pundits talk, I will give you all a few players to maybe think about. Tom McKibben has gotten a lot of attention this week, so Tom McKibben is not going to be unique. Much like Jordan L. Smith, Tom McKibben is anywhere between 9 to 11%. So just be aware of that. I know a lot of people, a lot of pundits are on him. He's just not going to be unique. I mentioned the Højgaards, particularly Rasmus. Ewan Ferguson is also somebody that might be kind of interesting, considering he has played very well here at the Renaissance Club. I talked about Jordan L. Smith. He's just not going to be very unique. Moving on down into the sixes, Guido Migliozzi I know is in good form. Recently winning on the DP World Tour. Take that for what you will. Thorbjorn Olesen has played very, very well here at the Renaissance Club. He has not been great on the PGA Tour, as you can tell by his ranking, but he's played well at the Renaissance Club, so perhaps somebody to maybe consider. Matthew Jordan is somebody who generally plays in the majors, U.S. Open, Master, PGA Championship, Open Championship. Generally has some success. Maybe think about Matthew Jordan. Trying to look at some others here. Matthew Southgate, people have been talking about him a little bit. Might want to talk, maybe consider Matthew Southgate if you're down here. Alex Bjork, one of the better putters around, especially on slow green. So this is one player that I would be comfortable using with some amount of confidence, even though he didn't rate out very well. You see, he's been very good here at the Renaissance Club. So this is maybe one of those DP World Tour players that I would have a little bit of confidence in. Alex Bjork. Let's see. Keeping on down here. Richie Ramsey, maybe. Maximilian Kiefer from Germany, or maybe Belgium. Somebody to maybe think about. So there's a few DP World Tour players to maybe put on your radar for this week. If you're looking for some budget options, I will admit that my knowledge of these players is quite limited. But do be aware, even though this is top 65 in ties, at least the past 2 years with the integration or the strategic alliance, about 40 to 50% of the players that make the cut or that have made the cut at the Renaissance Club have been DP World Tour players. So it's probably best that you find a way to get some of these guys into your player pool. So I'm still struggling on how and who I'm going to put in mine. But let's start making some lineups. We're going to start with tiers contest, and we'll move to classic lineups. In the tiers contest, we have tier 1, Rory, Xander, and Ludwig. All three of these guys are great. Much like classic lineups, I'm probably going to go with Ludwig Åberg. He is the more volatile option of these three, but I do think he's going to be the most unique of these three. And I like the course fit here for Åberg. So give me Åberg in tier 1, hoping that he's unique off the other two. Tier 2, Morikawa, Tommy, Victor, Tom Kim, and Minwoo Lee. For me, it's pretty clearly between Tommy, Tom Kim, and Minwoo Lee. Again, the more volatile option is Minwoo Lee. If you're wanting to go safe, it's probably Tommy. No, Tom Kim's played pretty well here. I'm probably going to go with Tom Kim. Probably balance the two between the safety and the volatility. Gosh dang it. I'll probably try to balance the two and go with Tom Kim in tier 2. But it's between those three. Fleetwood, Tom Kim, and Minwoo Lee. I like all three of them. But give me Tom Kim in tier 2. Tier 3, Hideki, Fitzpatrick, Connors, Justin Thomas, and Sungjae. I wish I could just skip this tier and take 2 of them from tier 2, but I guess give me Sungjae. Again, I'm just not confident in Justin Thomas right now. I don't want any part of Hideki this week. Fitzpatrick could be interesting. I'll still take Sungjae because he's in much better form than Fitzpatrick. But Fitzpatrick could be interesting only because of how unique he's probably going to be. But give me Sung Jae in Tier 3. Tier 4, Harmon, Rye, Tagala, Clark, Spieth, Davis Thompson, and Max Homa. Oh, for me, it's between Rye and Clark. Give me Wyndham Clark, only because I think he'll be more unique than Aaron Rye, but he actually might not be. But give me Wyndham Clark in Tier 4. Tier 5, Bobby Mack, Ben On, Sepstraka, Siwoo, Seabaz, McCarthy, and Noren. I like Seabaz quite a bit. I like Noren quite a bit. Ben On is probably the best player in this tier, or the best play in this tier, I should say. Bobby Mack's also kind of interesting. This tier is kind of loaded. It's not McCarthy. It's not Siwoo Kim for me. I really like Noren. I really like Seabez. It's also not Straka. Ooh, that's tough. Give me Seabez, but it's pretty darn close. Bobby Mack's interesting. Ben On's probably the best play. But I'll try to get some uniqueness. Give me Seabez slightly over Noren. Slightly. And then Tier 6, Griot, Hodges, Taylor Moore, Brendan Todd, Guido, Thorbjorn Olesen, and Andrew Putnam. For me, it's kind of between these two players, only based on the previous history. I guess give me Thorbjorn Olesen. I'm not in love with it, but I don't really like anybody else in this tier. I'm not in love with Griot this week. Lee Hodges played well here last year, but Brendan Todd, no thanks. No thanks on Taylor Moore. Yeah, give me Thorbjorn Olesen. Why not? So this tier's construction goes Ludwig Aubert in Tier 1. I will go Tom Kim in Tier 2. Tier 3, I will go Sung Jae. Tier 4 is... Where'd he go? Wyndham Clark. Tier 5, Seabez. Tier 6, Thorbjorn Olesen. All right. With that, let's move to making some classic lineups, building some lineups for these big GPPs. Try to find a way to really rise in the standings. First thing, let's try to build some chalky lineups. Figure out how our fellow contestants are building their lineups. That way we know how to maneuver around it. So, according to Gabe Source, it's Rory. Per Fantasy National, it's looking like it might be Xander, but let's go Rory for the chalky lineup. We're going to start with Rory, and at least per Fantasy National, it looks like almost exclusively they are bottoming out at Jordan L. Smith, maybe Tom Hoge in the lower sevens. So Jordan L. Smith. Tom Hoge, Thomas Dietrich is getting a lot of attention. Who I like. I like Dietrich a lot this week. Been on in the mid sevens, also garnering some attention. This is leaving our fellow contestants with a couple of 8s. You know, depending on the style they want to go, you know, this could be Aaron Rye and Wyndham Clark. If they go maybe Bobby Mack, gosh dang it. If they go Bobby Mack, this leaves them 89, which is Connors, who's getting a little bit. You know, this is a cumulative ownership of 81.5%. Doesn't seem like a lot. This would be duplicated quite a bit. You know, another way they could go about this, maybe they go like if they go Tommy, and then they'll have to drop all the way down to maybe let's see, go Tommy, Wyndham Clark, Bobby Mack, Keith Mitchell's also getting some attention. Because this would be Dietrich, I think. Let's try to get them. That'd be too much. Because what's challenging is that it doesn't seem like there's a consensus other than Jordan L. Smith in the 6s and definitely not in the 5s. Nobody in the 5Ks is generating much interest at all. Sammy Valimaki maybe at 6%, but per Gabe's source, he's only at 4%. Gabe's source in the 6s has Pavone at 9%. Jordan L. Smith not as high. Maybe Pavone. Tom McKibben could also be in this. If they go Dietrich, Jordan L. Smith, maybe Tom McKibben or Tom Hoagie. This is 74. Keith Mitchell. So that's another look at it, perhaps, if they're trying to squeeze in Rory and a Tommy. Again, about 84% cumulative. Probably going to get duplicated a little bit. If our fellow contestants aren't using Rory, they're probably using Xander. But let's try to build them a more balanced lineup. Figure out how those lineups are getting built. So they're going to definitely start with Tommy. Looks like it'd be Tom Kim. Although, at least per Gabe's source, Victor Hovland's also garnering quite a bit. Minwoo Lee going to be very popular this week as well. Sungjae Aaron Rai absolutely would be in this. Maybe they go to Wyndham Clark or Bobby Mack, probably one of those two. Let's go with Bobby Mack. Let's see. Per Gabe's source, it'd be Bobby Mack. And then trying not to go into the 6Ks for them. Could if we had to, but at the bottom is Tom Hoagie. Yeah, 77 is plenty. Been on. Who's garnering a lot. Right at that same ownership with Rory and Fleetwood. Just a different take. More of a balanced look. So if these are the chalky lineups that our fellow contestants seem to be building, how are we going to maneuver around that? Well, I've given you plenty of players that seemingly are pivots in their area. I'm going to be using quite a bit of Ludwig, I think, this week. Now, he's not particularly unique. He's just a pivot off of Rory and Xander. So I like Ludwig this week. Tommy, Fleetwood, Tom Kim is probably good. I'm going to sprinkle some Fitzpatrick, absolutely, but let's go with Tom Kim. Nothing wrong with Tom Kim. Sitting at anywhere between 14 to 16%. I like Tom Kim this week. We still have plenty of maneuverability since we have a few players in the 5s that we could maybe go to. For me, I'm not terribly comfortable going down there, but like Victor Perry at 6-3. I really like Victor Perry this week. Let's see. If you want to get off the Jordan L. Smith, maybe a Matt Wallace. Kurt Kitayama, if you're there. I could just never get him right, but Kitayama rated out well. Maybe you like one of the Hoygaards. I'm going to go with Victor Perry in this. Really free up some salary that we can probably take another 8 if we wanted to. Again, I'm not necessarily as much into the 8s, but you could think about a Brian Harmon, a Sungjae. Me, I'd probably try to get greedy and try to squeeze in a Minwoo with this. And then we have a mid and a low 7, Seabez, who I'm very, very high on this week. He's a little bit popular, and then Eric Van Rooyen. I mean, you're at a sub 70% cumulative ownership here. Just getting on using the pivot of Ludwig over Xander and Rory. Tom Kim instead of Tommy Fleetwood and Victor. And then rounding out your lineup, I mean, you still have 3 9Ks, one of them being a 10K, and you've only dropped into the 6Ks once. So these are the kind of lineups that I've really, really tried to focus on this week, mixing and matching. I mean, you mentioned Ryan Fox, Darnell. Ryan Fox would easily fit into this. You can go Ryan Fox here, and then instead of Seabez, it's Alex Noren. There's even less ownership. You know, another player in the low 7s who's popular is Thomas Dietrich. I really like, so I'd find a way to mix and match with him. You can go with Dietrich there, and then drop off of Minwoo to go to Matt Fitzpatrick, who I think is going to be probably pretty solid this week. These are the lineups that I've been building most often for the Scottish this week. But I'll stick around in case people have any questions. But I've got a couple answers or a couple questions to answer here. So, how many DP World Tour players are in your pool? Seems like the winning answer right now is a few. That's probably where I'm going to settle. I can't say that any of them are going to be in my core, but I'll probably try to throw Jordan L. Smith into a lineup, Ewan Ferguson into a lineup. I'm just going to play scattershot with these DP World Tour players, I think. Trying to look at some others like Guido. I'll probably throw him in one. Thorbjorn Olesen. Alex Bjork I'll definitely put into a lineup. So I'm just going to play a scattershot approach with the DP World Tour players. Definitely not going to make them part of my core. One and done. My first click was Thomas Dietrich because he has played so well here. I also realize that I haven't used Tommy Fleetwood yet, but I also think he's going to be pretty darn popular in terms of a one and done. And while I am still in the top 20, if I pick Tommy Fleetwood, I'm not going to gain a whole lot on people, I don't think. So right now I've got Thomas Dietrich as my one and done. I am not sold on that. I could still change to Ludwig. I could still change to Morikawa. Or not Morikawa, excuse me, Tommy. I've used Tom Kim. I could look at Minwoo Lee, actually. Soft spot for Longesk. Some good money. So Romain Longesk is also somebody that I've heard garner some attention. Again, you just see I don't have any stats for him. But I've heard, a couple of people mention him as well. So don't hate that by any means. Trying to think of any other one and dones. I don't know if I'm as confident on Wyndham Clark to use him, although I think he'd be pretty unique. Don't think I'm as confident on Alex Noren in terms of a one and done. So yeah, Dietrich, Tommy Fleetwood, maybe Victor Hovland, and not feeling great about it. Maybe a Minwoo Lee. But my first click for one and done was Thomas Dietrich, and that's where I'm leaning right now. So with that, I believe that's going to be the end of the show, because I still have to finalize my own lineups and get them put in before lineups lock here in a couple hours. But thanks to Darnell and P for jumping in chat. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. Love what I do, taking an in-depth look at golf statistics, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Hadn't been a great couple of weeks for me, but we're going to try to turn the ship around. Reminder, hey, thanks, Gabe. Thanks for jumping in chat there right at the end. Reminder that I'm going to be over in Gabe's Substack chat. So if you're a subscriber to his article, make sure to join us over there. It's always a great discussion as we continue the DFS talk. If you're not subscribed to his article and you're not following him over on social media, you're really missing out. I really suggest you do that. His handle is in the description. So I'll be over there momentarily, Gabe. Going to wrap up the stream. But yeah, keep me informed this week on how you are doing with the Scottish Open, with the ISCO Championship if you decide to play. But thanks again for all the support. Love what I do. Wouldn't be able to do it without you all. For all the wagers you have made this week for the Scottish Open, for all the DFS contests you play this week for the Scottish Open, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.